Call this meeting. What? Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the CIP committee and it is January 13th, 2023 at 12:30 p.m. And what else am I saying? We have a quorum. The only person who's missing is Stu Cobb. So everyone is here either in person or on Zoom. And let's see, first thing is present to speak. Is anyone here present to speak? I don't think so. I don't see anybody who's not part of this online. All right, then we can move on to approval of minutes. And we have minutes from our last meeting that Kelsey did, which I thought she did a great job on. Does anybody want to make a motion to
Actually, could I make a motion for an insertion? I was kind of hoping Stu would be here, but on the back page, on the second page, is that okay? Or should we make the motion first?
A motion, because they won't.
Okay,
be changed.
move to accept the minutes of February 10th.
I'll second.
okay, and what?
I mean, January 10th.
Yeah,
Oops.
okay. So what are the,
Oh, okay, so only on the second page, after the first sentence about Stu saying, reporting that the ambulance replacement project is pending. I just thought for the record, it'd be good to add that that he said that prices are about double what they were. He warned that prices are about double what they were 2 to 3 years ago for ambulances, because I thought that was a pretty arresting figure. I don't remember it exactly, but I'm sure it's on the tape, but it was something like 450 grand versus 260 grand that's in the plan now. So
yeah,
I just thought that was important for the record.
yep. Okay. Anything else anybody saw that they think should be amended, corrected? No? All right, and let's vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes with that addition, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we have minutes approved. Look at us, we're moving right along. All right, the first item on the agenda are the assessors submittals. Should we?
Go to land use.
And yes, and we
Mike
can skip over that and go right to Mike for land use. And Mike, are you able to talk to us? There he is.
Hi. So I assume I submitted some documents or some attachments with the submission. I can speak to them if you have them, or I can sort of talk more thoroughly if you don't have them.
We do have them.
Okay. So I guess the first thing I'll note is I did submit this request, both myself and on behalf of Robin Campbell, to the ARPA Commission for consideration. But essentially what this is a review, update, and bringing of all the town's regulatory documents into the 21st century. This would be done through General Code, which is a company that's a subset of the ICC. They produce all of the code documents that the building officials use, et cetera, and would involve basically a regulatory review and organizational analysis of all of the town's documents, including ordinances, zoning regulations, inland wetland regulations, subdivision regulations, et cetera. And they would be looking for references to sections or ordinances or documents that the town does not have, incorrect references to public acts or statutes. They would be looking at criteria or regulations which do not align with current case law or other changes to legislative updates, or anything that doesn't align with current obligations. For example, if towns say, we define a family as 3 individuals that are related by blood, right? We can't do that. So they would identify things that are non-compliant. They would also basically go through an organization of all these documents and make sure that our numbering structures and the way that the document was organized made sense, and was user friendly. When all that is completed, they would be brought online into an e-code online portal, essentially. This would allow people to download in multiple file formats. You can adjust the size of the document if if you're for your reading level or with vision. You can email specific links and share these things, and they're accessible on a phone and searchable. So it really is trying to update all of our documents and then make them accessible to people, rather than having to hunt through a 300 or 400 page Word document.
Great.
And the only thing I'll add is related just to the actual number. So there's between 10 and 11,000 of that is related to the codification process itself. That would be through general code. And then as part of that, one of the things, I've gone through this process in other towns, that we typically would do is have a legal review done by, in this case, it would be done by the land use department's attorney through Haller and Sage. So some of those recommendations or modifications, if they were more substantial, we would have them be on board to review those recommendations before any of them were implemented. And so that's where the additional number comes from.
I have a question. Actually, that was one of my first questions. Was there room for oversight? So if this company wanted to make changes that didn't need to legally be made, you mentioned taking it to the land use lawyer and having them review it. What's the process afterwards to, I guess, ultimately decide if this change needs to be made or not?
So basically, what we will get from them is a report that says section 123 says X, statute 576 says Y. The language you have is therefore non-compliant, and we would suggest you revise as follows. The town then has the option to say, thanks for the suggestion, we're not going to do it, or ask to implement those changes. On the zoning side, or with the land use stuff, we would then take those revisions and we would run them through the text amendment process as we would any other change. There would be public hearings with the Planning and Zoning Commission or Inland Wetlands Commission. They would be referred to regional agencies. If it was an ordinance, then that would be run through the ordinance change process. But they're going to make organizational and sort of legal update suggestions, but it'll be up to the town to choose which of those we feel is appropriate to implement now or perhaps down the road.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
So sorry. Well, on that point, is there time built in, and is PZC geared up for this massive, review and change? Because obviously everyone's going to be pro modernizing access to our codes, but it's quite a lot of work, and I'm just, I just think we need to be careful with it because the devil's in the details on something like this.
Yeah, so we've talked about this with the commission, and we've talked about the need to really make the document more usable and also fix things within the body of the regs that, errors and issues that we know exist. So they're on board for the work. And I guess to that point, this is a process that takes many months. So they will move at the speed that we're most comfortable with based upon what we decide. And if there's something that's determined to be more sensitive or needs more thought and consideration, then what we would do is simply defer that change and take it up separately, sort of following the project.
Would the public have any access to those revisions while they're in the process of accepting or declining? Would they be able to see those documents? Because I just think this is one of those things that, we don't want to shock people like that, what happened with the SDZ process. And I just think that we ought to be really sensitive to that.
Yep. So any change would be thoroughly advertised. We would require legal notices, public hearings. It would go before the commission multiple times. All that documentation would be available. They could view it online. They could come in and get copies of that full analysis and report. So there'd be plenty of opportunity for public engagement.
And Mike, one bookkeeping question. On your request, it says ongoing impact on the budget of about $1,500 a year to maintain this. But then your narrative says 1,200. So I'm just wondering, I'm guessing that 1,500 is the updated number, but just want to be sure on that number.
So that's, yeah, I based that on the information that I had from most recently. We went through this in Ashford, and the difference, it depends on if, at the following year end, we have a massive change. Let's say the town goes through and adopts a bunch of new ordinances or something, then there's a lot more work for them to do to sort of revise. So the baseline is the 1,200. And if we have more changes on an annual basis, then it would go from there. What we've done in Ashford to not have the fluctuating carrying, ongoing costs are to just choose to do all of our updates at one time. So we don't have those constant recurring charges. But from the way our budgets are structured, my expectation is to cover most, if not all of that, within the existing land use department budget.
Okay, thanks. And I looked at the comparable towns that have this. And so Ashford has adopted it fully.
Yes.
And they're the only one that really compares. So, because, in our region anyway.
So Tolland has it, and they actually use it a little bit more extensively to manage all of their agendas and minutes. It's as like a document management system. They just don't have their zoning regs in it, but all their ordinances and everything else are there. Mansfield is moving in that direction. They have ordinances, and hopefully in 2023 are going to be working to implement the zoning regs, et cetera, as well.
But they're on the list of having it already. They don't have it already?
They have it through their town clerk for ordinances, but they don't have some of the other documents. So they're moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
This sounds a lot like similar process that the Board of Education undertook in or around 2009, 2010 timeframe to go through all of their policies to bring them up to date. And it took some time to do them so that you could take them in pieces. They very clear defined sections there. And so this is a similar process of modernizing and making sure they're up to date with statute. And post-COVID, being able to have them online, I think is key. So I think the implementation will go, I have no doubt it will go smoother, but it could go as fast or as slow as the PCC or inland wetlands or ordinance process is willing to take, but very clear, and we make the ultimate decisions, the stakeholders in the town, whether it be at town meeting for ordinances or the boards and commissions, make the changes on
And
our
was
end.
the process like? I can just imagine worst case scenario, every single little line that needs to be changed even slightly, there's gonna be somebody out there trying to fight it. Is it something that you have like large groups, like here's a batch of things that need to be modified?
That would depend on how PCC decides to break it down. They may take, I see Mike nodding, yes, they may take a section on, I don't know, pick one, farming, and take that section, decide to do that section. So the Board of Ed took them in chunks and worked on this section. And there were multiple readings at board meetings, multiple discussions. It was done at that level. Some things will be done at the PCC level, and their change process includes some public hearings. So I can't imagine if they had sweeping changes, they would take them in one big pile. It would behoove them to be able to digest it all, to break it into sections.
And was it the same company?
No, so the Board of Ed used CABE.
Okay, but it's similar idea.
Similar idea.
So they go through and things that are in
Yeah.
conflict with current, I mean, did you?
A lot of it
notice-
was in conflict with statute.
And there
So-
was some best practice stuff too,
Yes.
like just to make sure that we were following best practice and so the choices were not just, do you want to use, this word or this word? It was, your policy is maybe not illegal, but it's not what everybody else is doing.
And it may not hold
So-
water when you move forward trying
Yeah.
to enforce it.
And did
Yeah.
you find that the changes were like overall beneficial?
Yes.
And then the searchability, because I've never used it. I mean, is it searchable? and-
The Board of Ed wasn't online like this.
Okay,
So a little bit different, same concept, this modernizes it. I have utilized it in other towns when I'm searching for statutes that they might have to see, if we're considering something, and I find it very easy to use.
I mean, just being able to search some of these like land use codes, that would be
It would be
huge, instead of
And-
scrolling
and the
through.
ordinances.
walls of
And the
text.
ordinances
And the
too.
ordinances,
Yeah.
that's a real mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nightmare,
And
so
I,
yeah.
yeah, and I appreciate that Mike and Robin, our town clerk, jointly submitted this to ARPA as well, so.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
the other thing that is nice is that as users, once the town becomes a client, users within the building, not every single one, but we've provided access, and you have access to basically their own sort of Google search engine. So if the town is interested in adopting an ordinance about X and Y, you can go in, you can search every code that they maintain in the country, and you can filter by the size of the town or the city, the location or the topic, and you can instantly see what all these towns are doing for this type of ordinance or that type of regulation, and kind of get those examples right off the bat.
chickens.
Chickens, yeah, right.
So,
No,
Mike,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask about, this has come before ARPA, and ARPA is going to be probably making some decisions in a couple of weeks with the remaining funds. So is this something that can get started pretty quickly, or is this something that you'd have to wait a while on?
So it's not something that has a really long or needs a really long runway. It's just sort of, going through contracting, and then we'd have to sort of get into their queue. That's not like they're a year out, but there's not a lot of pre-work that the town has to do. So it's a little bit flexible on when that happens, but we're not unprepared to get started, as soon as we find out that we have funds.
Okay, great.
I just had a question about price, and that is, or the quote, 15,000, is that the whole nut, given that it might take multiple years to do all this?
Yeah, so that's based on the cost that we had in Ashford, which they did the same thing, zoning, ordinances, and inland wetlands. And then there's, like I said, the other is for the town's legal review.
Okay, so Ashford, did they come close to their 10 grand quote? For them?
Yeah, that was, I guess you treat it almost like a lump sum proposal, so they will do it for that cost. It's not like an hourly and you find out, oh no, we're in excess.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Any other questions for Mike? Anyone online have a question? Jen? No, Melissa? Okay, great. Then I think we can say thank you to Mike, and that's all that we're gonna hear from land use for CIP?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, moving on. What should we move on to? The assessor or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi. Hi.
One and done.
So my understanding of how you guys have been paying for evaluation is that, I don't know if it was the prior one, that the 2018 you just paid it as a lump sum, right? So there is the option of budgeting out over a bunch of years. That would be for the future. That's what some of the future years are. So the cost that was in there for the revaluation was supposed to be starting now, for next year, but it was delayed a year. Was 57,000, and I'm not clear that that is in a reserve fund or where that is. I've seen it, 20,000, 27,000 in
Yeah, what we have been doing is just putting some, I think it was 30,000 a year in the
Okay,
reserve
the
fund,
last
and then
20
waiting
for
5
for
years.
this year, right, it was 30,000 and last year it's 27,000.
Next year. So this year we had, for 23-24, we budgeted 30,000, and then for next year, 27,000, assuming
Oh, okay, I was
57,000 for the
talking
whole.
about, okay, so
So, the fiscal year.
because I have here, fiscal year 2022-03 off budget expenditures,
Yeah, so
30,000.
30,000,
Right,
yes,
yeah, okay, so that's for.
yeah, so already,
Ending June,
beginning last July 1
yeah.
of 22, 30,000 had been approved.
Oh,
We
okay.
didn't move forward with spending because we've now delayed the
Right, right,
rebound, but it's been set aside.
It's an, okay, and the prior year, was there 27? No, there was not,
27 for this coming fiscal year.
okay,
So we took the year,
Okay, so
and
you-
each year in the past, it's been, you can speak to this, has been some in the year you begin preparing for, and then the year of the rebound.
okay, all right, you can do, yeah, that's, all right. So, all right, so you postponed it last year, you didn't put anything in, right?
In 21-22, no, we
No.
put it in beginning July 1,
I see,
2022.
okay, because that's how you budget is over,
Yeah.
of the 2 years that you.
That you do the work.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay, yeah, so,
So how much is the revale? Is it,
I don't, I mean.
I'm sure like everything
We
else.
have
is
to go
more.
out to bid. I think the estimate has been, and the working estimate 57,000, which I compared that to what I don't have the exact number for what Ashford paid, but they did in 21, and it was approximately 60,000, and it was for approximately the same number of parcels. And I looked at the, there's a survey that this assessors group does every year on revale costs. And while there's not a ton of information in there for other towns that are budgeting like this year or last year or next year, with the number of parcels approximately that we have, close to 2,500. It was like $30 a parcel, so that's 72,000 in the future. But you know, that can change also due to there are a lot of pictures that are missing. Okay, I've been taking some, obviously, but that I think getting update or they're old, so getting updated pictures, and they charge extra for those. So unless you include it in the contract, so that's where I came up with the request that I put in. But I didn't realize that you had money.
So you think 75.7 is what we'll need?
I think it's
Total,
yeah, that's
Okay.
probably a little more than you need, but
all right,
and we won't need it until next fiscal year.
so if we already have
Right.
30, then we're really looking at 45.7,
So you mean fiscal year 25?
Yes,
24.
yeah,
Yeah,
And
but
actually-
usually if you say fiscal year and the second year in it,
Mhm.
that's shorthand for that, right?
Yeah.
For 24, 25.
percent,
For some, for something.
My, yeah. My
Okay.
count does it opposite, but yeah, just to confuse me.
So then, Kara, you're also suggesting that we put some money aside each year, planning for the next.
for after this cycle, yeah, I mean, that's up to you, that's a planning decision, but
And that's what we do,
We haven't,
no?
no, it had been the opposite way, because Walter, when our previous assessor had come in, he had suggested every year, and the CI, there was folks were torn and kind of went back to our standard, which was put some in the year you begin and some in the year of the rebound
Mhm.
and do it then. And his suggestion, sounds similar to Kara's, and you kind of break up the pain too. You're planning for it. And it's if you put a solid number away each time, I think we can see it's more, which is not surprising, everything
Yeah, it's not gonna be less.
It's
We're not,
more.
we're not at risk of saving too much.
But
Right,
if you budget, yearly leading into it, are you in danger of being out of date for the reval year?
you're not doing the money, it's just putting the money aside, we're just putting money aside for it and already
then
planning.
Carrying it over? Or- I
It's
don't-
just sitting there waiting to be spent,
In the reserve
the
fund.
reserve
Oh,
fund.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
It's just
Yeah, like a
encumbered out of the
savings
reserve
account.
fund. Yeah, so we plan for it, so that in this case, if, we find that we think we're gonna be a little bit short, right? So Kara's saying 75, and we were really looking at 57, and we put enough away for our 57, we would be short. And so in the year prior, we have time to make an adjustment,
Mhm.
but we have some money in savings.
So what are we talking about the first year? This 32.7?
Yep, year one is 32.7. The only thing I would want to make sure with Donna, that she has the money in the reserve fund to,
Right.
that she's thinking about this too.
I would say we don't need 32.7. I'd say if Kara's saying we need 75.7, we only have 30,
Mhm.
then we need 45.7
Yeah,
Over how many years?
this year,
Just this year?
just this year. Because we would go out for an RFP in July. And then, or maybe sooner, what Kara determined. And then we have to do the rebound next year.
Right.
So, or the year, yeah, we've left one extra year, It's supposed to be in 23,
Right.
and now it'll be in 24. So I would say if we adjust that number to 45.7 instead of 32.7.
Okay, so what's on the request, we're not gonna go, we're gonna do that in preparation for the next reval, this 17.5 a year idea? Because it's got it for 4 years.
I'm
out,
sorry.
Plus the 32.7.
I'm also looking at, I have to get used to this new form. So
Yeah.
this number is breaking down all of the years she's put in, and that totals 75.7. Right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to retrain myself how to use
But
this.
when does the check for 75.7 have to be written? In,
Okay, so if they're gonna start next, let's say, February or March,
of
Okay.
24.
right, they're
Gonna
gonna
start.
bill probably for the first couple of months, maybe even bill monthly or whatever and, there's like a percentage done of each task type of thing. And then they usually go for a stretch over the summer. And then there's another bill, bigger bill that comes, at October or something. And then there's one last bill at the end.
Okay, so then we're moving over different fiscal years. So it sounds like in this fiscal year, you're gonna need the payment to get them started.
And we have the 30,000 already.
Yeah. So maybe in this fiscal year, we don't need 45.
I think we need, whatever we think the total is, we're gonna need to factor in the difference between the 30 we already have
Mhm.
and what the whole anticipated cost would be.
Okay, what I'm seeing on this is 17.5 for fiscal year 25, 26, 27, and 28.
I might have misunderstood
How we plan.
I was, the cost that you have to budget for to be spent over next, in the spring of 24 and the fall of 25, is that 75. Okay, and so whatever you have in reserve minus, subtracted from that would be what you would need to, I would think.
So what do you think we need to do this next rebound? Do you think we need 75,000?
Yeah, I think that would be a good, yes.
All right, so
Yeah,
then I would say in year one, then we need 45,000.
Okay, it's
And that-
75.7. So, but is the total, right? That's projected. So if you did that, then we already have 30,000 in, that's it.
That's it. That's what right
That's
now,
what
in
we
this
did,
year, we have
okay.
30,000. If we went forward rebound, we'd done our 30,000. to spend. Jen has her hand up too.
Oh, hi, Jen.
I think I'm trying hard to understand what is happening. So what I just heard right now is that this big chunk of money, the 75 or 45, if we factor the 30,000 in, is for the next few years. Like so we're having this big chunk of money, or we pay the smaller amount of money and then subsequent over the next few years, we pay the 17.5. Like, I'm not really understanding.
Right, okay, so I think, let me just see something. I believe if you took the 57,000, I might have confounded this, and I apologize, but.
I think it's delaying it makes
Yeah,
that.
if you
Yeah.
made it 57,000, that was, I think, the cost, the general cost that people were working with. And so instead of that being enough for the reval that we were gonna start paying for this spring, I said, all right, I'm gonna increase it 10%, just for time. In the meantime, since the town is doing the revaluation effectively a year later, you're gonna only have, you're not gonna have the 5 fiscal years, you're gonna have the 4 fiscal years to budget for it. But if you're not budgeting over every year, then it doesn't, you can take that 17.5 from that total.
Put it in one lump sum.
So it would be, because if you had 57,000
So the first,
and 57.
so 27, 20, what we have is year 5 in our plan would be the start of
So you would
the
want
next-
62.7.
the next reval.
You
So
would want
that's the
62.7.
If I'm understanding, the 4 17.5s are because we only have 4 years
70
instead of 5, and those would total up to start the 2028 process.
That's what I believe, yes.
Yeah, but that's, you can, if you don't want to.
If we don't want to do a little bit each year,
Delete it.
Right.
so we can either break it up over the years or we can put it in 1 year. So there's an argument each way. And the last time this came up, CIP decided to keep it in the 2 years that they need the money, that they're using the money. So the year before reval, when you start doing some of the preparation work, and the year of the reval, which was planned to be this current fiscal year and this coming fiscal year. So year 1 of this plan.
So which are we landing on? Doing it in 2 years or doing it over a period?
I don't know that we have to decide that today. We just,
Okay.
I think, if I can say 2 things, remind ourselves that we left ourselves for an hour and a half.
And
And that we don't have to work out the plan, but hear the project.
I
But
I just want to make sure that all I really need to look at right now is not the 4 years of 17.5 at this point, but just that we need 45.7 to get up to.
No, I think we need to hear. that that's what-
And I think the major takeaway is every 5 years, it's probably 75 grand.
Right,
So whether we pay that in 2 years.
so whether we
or
pay
pay it-
35,000 at the beginning and 35,000 at the end, or 17.5 every year for 4 years. Would be
Yeah,
the
except for the
difference.
problem is it's next year that it's happening, so we need 75 grand for next year.
Right, no, I understand.
Yeah,
I'm looking
So-
at these other things. here
yeah, and then the
that would
out
be for
years, yeah,
2028.
but I think Erica's right, like, we can talk to Donna too, because I do think this year we had reserved 30,000,
Right.
and that should be, she should have the accounting on that, and can tell us like when we need these different pots of money to be in what year. And once she does, I think we
Yeah,
we can think about whether or not we want to do this, reserve every year or.
and our plan had already planned for 27, so we may just need to increase that, so.
Right.
Yeah,
so I just want to clarify that that the estimate is going up 19,000 from what we had presumed.
right,
Yes.
So that's more than 10%. I think. That's more like 20.
Okay, that, and I think, so that is including another 17.5 or so for, and I rounded up to, I think, well, it was to, I was adding
Oh, I
in the
get-
next cycle.
Yeah, gotcha.
17.5.
Okay.
So take that out and you would just, the total would be 62.7. I probably would round that up to 65 for the cost of the reval. You have 30,000 now and 35,000 needed for
okay.
the year that you're working on.
Okay,
So the number is 65,
Yes.
okay.
So
And
that
then-
means we only need,
And then so 65 per reval.
so that means we only need 35 on top of what's in reserve, not 45?
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for, I just didn't understand.
Every
No,
time we
it's
talk
fine.
about reval, we have the same kind of discussion.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
just-
we
I just
all-
wanted
Yeah.
to-
No, it's not you.
This is only my second year on CIP, so this is the first time I've been through a revale. I just want to know I understand the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep. Okay, well, great. Well, thanks.
all
We'll,
right.
we'll get it in there one way or another.
Okay.
This isn't an optional thing
Right.
either.
Yeah,
This is, we
we're
have to do
spending
it.
this.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion so that we can be as concise as possible? If we can have our presenters present all their projects and then we can ask our questions. Try
Okay,
and keep
Yeah,
it-
okay,
okay,
Sure.
that's fine.
yeah.
Can we knock yours off since it's so simple?
I'll do mine at the end, so if they're not,
Okay.
if we have to come back, I'm gonna be here, so I can just talk about it the next time.
Okay, so Troy.
Okay, the first one would be for this year. Last year I put it in and then you guys pushed it out on. So this year I came back for the sweeper again. Our sweeper is literally 26 years old. Last year we rebuilt a conveyor out of it. We took our old sweeper and like made parts and did what we could. Some of it was just, we couldn't get parts. It still runs, but it's still something that we should look to try to replace. This isn't a replacement of a new sweeper, it's replacing another used sweeper. I don't think we really need a new sweeper. A new sweeper is probably around 300,000. I think 100,000 we could get, you know, within a 10 or 15-year-old sweeper instead of a 26-year-old sweeper.
Okay, we're holding questions on the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright. Next one. The next one I put in this year too, is for the garage doors that we replace at the Public Works Department. We've had quite a bit of like repairs done to them. It's, some of them need some new motors. We just recently had wheels come off of a couple doors. They just came last week and fixed the wheels. It's something that we should consider looking into something within the next few years. We had a spring break last year, door came slamming down. The doors get used pretty much every day, constantly up and down, up and down. We have maintained them to the point that we can, but it's still something that, you know, if it would be to put on the list, you know, to be fixed. The next one. The next one is the stormwater interceptors. And that's due to the MS4. It's been pushed away a few years, but it's something that we can, once this is done, we can check it off to say on that permitting that it's done. So it's, I did that and that's for 2 years out. But it's something, the town, I believe, could do some of the work and so where we cut costs a little bit. But that was estimated from our town engineer, that price. The next one is the bus lot paving. That's been, I guess, on the project for quite some time. And the buses are gonna stay there. There is a water issue there. We've kind of patched it over the years, but to go in there and regrind that parking lot or to do an overlay on the parking lot is needed at some point.
Is that 60,000
Yeah, 60,000, yeah,
for either?
for either one, yeah.
And that's
The
your three.
overlay would be a little bit cheaper than the reclaim part of it, but if we were doing some work in town, if we were doing one of our roads and the reclaimer was here, we could go and do that at the same time, so they're not bringing equipment back and forth. I'm going too fast?
No?
No,
The next one that's been a project is the salt shed. I think we can go a little bit smaller instead of the original one that was designed. Due to what we're doing with the material, we've moved to more salt, but as long as we did have some area where we could put some sand and salt, we do use that still. But that price has kind of been the same. I think, I believe there is some steep money, I believe. with-
Yes, we're still going back and forth with DOT, yes.
So, That's that one. Let's see. The next one is quite a big one, that's Schofield Road. It's been on the project for a long time. We're currently trying to work with a project to see if we can help get some funding on that, but we have a few things going there, so that's a big one that we have off the list.
But it's really 2.2.
It's, yeah, I couldn't get it when I did it on the computer, it wouldn't let me go. It was as high as it could go, was 1.7.
I think, Mike, maybe we made some adjustments when we discovered you couldn't put in
Yeah.
the amount needed.
See.
And that is for year 3.
Yes.
Thinking?
Yep.
Yeah.
The next one is a new payloader, and that, I believe, this would be replaced on a 20-year cycle. That payloader is used to load the trucks. We use it mostly on a daily basis when we're hauling something, scraping something off the road. We use it to pick up, deer on the side of the road, stuff at the transfer station. It's kind of a versatile piece of equipment that we use pretty much daily. That would be when that one is to be replaced, it would be 20 years of having that piece of machinery. And-
This is the one just that I asked Kelsey if we could get a printout of
Yeah, and I have it right
the
here.
quote.
Yeah. Yep. And then the next one is another new dump truck. And that would be 25, 26. And this would replace, if you wanted to stay on the 10-year cycle, this would replace the truck that's the 2015. If you didn't, if you wanted to push it out a year or two, you guys, but that would be staying on a 10-year cycle.
So, no, and there is no other dump truck in the 5-year plan, then you don't need one this year?
Nope,
Okay,
well, we're getting one, yeah, no.
Yeah.
No.
yeah,
No,
that's
it.
all good, okay.
Did you mean to leave Liska Road on?
No, I must have missed that one. That one was from last year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
and Village Hill too.
You know. Well, Village Hill will slowly working, hopefully this year we put some funding away too, that the town crew would slowly do it in
Right,
pieces.
Yeah,
So,
but we
and then
need-
we're also working
But we need more, so we'll probably need to make sure those get in there.
in there,
So,
yeah.
okay, I'll put placeholders in and use whatever the data
we're
was
going
last
for a
year.
grant for
For-
Right,
Village Home.
right. Okay, okay, all right, so that's, I guess, we can ask questions.
Or is it open?
Hi, Stu.
Let's start with, I guess, with the street sweeper. Is there used inventory even available? Do you know? You had mentioned looking at used, is that,
There is used, yeah, that people do replace some that are, 10, 15 years old. The average life cycle with a sweeper is 10 years old. So most towns do get rid of them at 10 years. So there is used ones available. The price could be, when I talked to him, it was a while ago, it all depends on what inventory they have. So something could be 125, it could be 80, depending on what it is.
and how old is our current one?
26 years.
Okay, and so generally speaking, your sense is the used inventory is half that.
Is that, yes?
Okay. Thank you.
Troy, it's a 26-year, did we get that? I remember getting one in
We
Vermont.
bought
In the late
it,
90s?
When I first started here, it was already purchased, but we bought one from Bristol and we paid $5,000 for it.
Right, okay, and that's the one.
That's the one.
Okay.
the one.
And it currently
Okay.
still runs. We rebuilt the conveyor, we put new brakes on it last
Mhm.
year, but it's something to look, it's
Yeah.
shown its life.
Yeah, because I think the one we had, we couldn't get,
Couldn't use.
we couldn't get parts and pieces.
Right, right.
So they found one for $5,000.
When was that?
It's kept
4
us
years
4
ago.
years ago.
And it is circa 96 or 94.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's an.
I mean, it looked rough when we got it. It was $5,000. You can see that took 100,000. So
Sure, sure.
It still has the brooms on the side, or you have to pull a pin to set the pin. The new ones now are all hydraulic. So if we want more down pressure, we have to get out, pull a pin, and then every day we adjust it the way the brooms were down.
Hmm.
So it still works, but it's showing its life expectancy.
And this year
Oh.
you spent five grand on
Yeah.
tweaks and repairs.
Yep,
So that was its purchase price.
that was his.
Okay.
How many streets are actually used with this street sweeper?
Every single
Every
road.
single one?
Yeah, besides the dirt roads.
And
And
that's a
parking
heck of a
lots.
lot of work
And
for a
parking lots.
26-year-old.
In the parking lots, yeah. And it gets used, we use it, I mean, if we're doing like a road project or something, we're digging up alongside of the road. Before they came in on Moose Meadow, we cut all the edges, you know, so we use it, it's not used every day, but it's used for a good 3 months in the springtime, used every single day, and then it gets parked and, you know, if there's an accident or something, we've gone out and swept up glass and speedy dry and so it's one of those things.
Do you know about how much work hours a new one might save from using the old one? Like, is it more efficient? if
It would be
it's
more
quicker?
efficient, yeah, I mean, think newer technology and everything, you know, but I can't say, you know, they have it set. You know, they do so many miles a day, they might get an extra maybe mile out of it, or they might not, I don't really, unless they put somebody in there to really.
Jen has her hand up, her virtual hand.
Thank you so much. The first thing is super nitpicky, but I almost had a heart attack when I saw it. That proposal for the overhead garage door guy. It says in letters, it says 71,000, but in actual numbers, it says 719,000.
Yeah, that's
So-
just.
Oh, the typo.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I had a heart attack. I just wanted to make sure that that was right.
I'm sure that would get thrown right off the list real fast.
His actual number.
No, but what
when they gave her a heart attack.
My second question, and this might be more of just a procedural CIP question than a Troy question, but I'm just wondering about Schofield Road and, I know we've talked a lot about kicking the can down the road. That's the phrase that people use a lot about the roads and, stuff like that. So I'm wondering why Schofield is in 25, 26. And if there's a way, we just talked about the reval. Is there a way to start planning now for something that we know that's coming down the road like that? Again, possibly just a CIP procedural question that I don't know the answer to.
So I'll touch that a little bit. So we've just put in some of the CIP money we had for engineering to go out. And we're working with Beta Group to get an estimate of costs, a solid plan. So then we'll have a number for what the engineering will be, because we don't know that. We didn't, you know, we kind of pushed the whole thing 1 year. We're gonna be taking all that information and be working towards obtaining grants as well. So it's a much more complex than just gonna happen next year. So I think the 25, 26 is a more realistic year for us to move this into. It'll be at least maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe longer, before we have real cost estimates to project, and then we'll be working towards a grant. So my hope is that this can be revised to say, we need $100,000 for engineering costs, and I just made up a number. And the rest we plan to get with grant funding, you know, something similar to that. So although it appears like we're just kind of continuously pushing it, we are closer to real work projections on this. And so to move it anywhere closer, I think would be putting the cart before the horse.
So are all three road projects, big road projects, Liska, Village Hill and Schofield, open to some
Grant
state
funding.
or federal?
I haven't found anything for Liska Road, but that doesn't mean it won't be.
Okay.
We're looking.
But the other two
We
have
think so.
potential.
There's a lot of federal dollars. A lot of our roads don't qualify, Jen, but we're going out there and trying, and Village Hill and Schofield are two that we feel pretty confident that we can get some funding for, so we can get back Wellington share of some of those other tax dollars that are out there.
Why do our roads not qualify?
Well, every grant has qualifications, so they just
It's
don't.
not that we're like too small.
No, a lot of it is not local road,
Ah, okay.
so that's really it, why.
Okay.
And, or they're not collector roads, they're not arterial roads, so they're different statuses, and that the funding can be that, so. It's dependent on the status of the road. I don't know if Jen still has a question.
Oh, geez.
Oh, sorry, I just forgot to put my hand down, but I just wanted to also say I appreciate that explanation. That makes a lot of sense. To collect money from other people so we don't have to pay it is a totally decent reason to wait.
Yeah, and I just to say we need it next year, and we still don't know what the the scope of work is, I think would be disingenuous.
Okay.
But I am hopeful that it won't go to the perpetual year 5.
Yes.
Yeah,
How long has it been on the,
Since the 90s.
since the nineties,
I thought it had been on for a really long time.
yeah.
Can I ask questions about the garage doors? Can we move on to the?
Yeah.
Just to the current state, are they still lockable? Like, are they, you
Oh,
can
yeah,
secure
they're
them?
secure, yeah, I mean, there's gaps, you know, underneath the doors, you know, whatever, we've had some new rubber pieces put on, they adjusted one the other day when they came, that was when it was closing, it like sat on an angle. They've tightened up the springs and done as much maintenance as they can, but some of the bottoms, you know, have been rotted, but the, you know, up and down, the wheels, the tracks, sometimes, you know, they've seen their life expectancy up and down, where they're just, you know, having issues. They still work, but it's just something that,
Okay,
you know.
and
I
then,
don't- no,
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't, you know, some of those doors, if they're big doors, if they were to ever come down on a piece of equipment or machinery or somebody walking through there or
Yeah.
whatnot, so that was,
Okay,
How many doors are there in the garage? Sorry.
no, that's okay.
there's 5.
Is the space heated, cooled?
It's heated. Yeah.
It's heated. I mean, are you noticing like drafts coming in? Would this be something with new doors that would be
It would be
saving some
more, yeah,
energy?
because the
too?
energy, the newer doors would be insulated more than what these doors are, so I'm sure there would be an energy, you know, savings that way.
Okay,
That's why you have that marked, reduced operating costs,
Yeah.
and savings in heat. Can I ask a couple
Yeah,
questions?
sure.
So, on the bus lot paving, okay, you know, fasten your seatbelt. I'm just, you know, the big question, is it possible to do kind of what you did with transfer station sticker check and just have someone there to turn some of those semis away? Because it's always distressing to
It's gonna
be.
be there.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, as a sort of spot thing, because it's distressing to feel like, you know, 60 grand and then it's gonna be torn up like in no time.
I
is
mean,
it not locked? Is there not a
Well,
gate
the gate
there?
got torn down, but it's hard to put a gate there. Who has the keys? Who, you know, that's the thing to make it, you know, the buses are in there, but we're in there. Sometimes we're in there in the middle of the night if we're dumping something or whatever. So to have keys for every, or if there was ever a fire, then the fire department needed to get in there. Or vice versa, they have their mechanics that work late. So to have somebody, even unless you put like a combination lock on, but then how many people? It's one of those things where I don't think you could ever stop somebody from going in there. as
The
much
gate
as-
was far enough up that they're still trying to use
They're
that to
still
turn
turn
around.
around.
So there's
I know.
a certain portion they're gonna, but I mean, we don't have staff to put somebody there.
No, I don't mean as a regular thing. I mean, as a sort of piss enough of them off that the word gets passed.
And is that the
it's not
sense that a lot
turnaround.
of the wear and tear is from the semis and not from the buses? Or just the fact that we
I
would
think
be
it's just
paving
that,
it?
I think it's where it is. I mean, they do, like, over the summer, they came in there one, and you see where he twisted and it ripped up the asphalt. I mean, it's not, it's been patched over years and over years. If it was fresh asphalt, would it happen when they come in there? Maybe, it very well could, depending on temperature wise and when it was put down. But it's, you know, the water plays a huge factor. The water, there is a hole that kind of comes down. There should be some drainage put in there if it was to be paved to get the water where it funnels in to go.
This is the lot that's like near the corner of 74 and 32.
No.
Just
Up by
before the
transfer
TA.
station?
Up by the transfer station.
Yeah.
I just need clarifications to where some of these things are.
Oh, Melissa, online.
Hi, thank you. I don't remember if Troy, said, how old are the current garage doors?
Probably 20 years or so, 25 years.
And do they say an estimate of how long they're supposed to last or?
I think it's just wear and tear and, you know, that's all.
Okay, and then do they have, like regular doors that the employees can walk through versus having to lift the door up all the time?
Yes, we do have one in the back and we would end up putting one on the other side too now. So there'll be 2 ways of doing it, but there is one in the back. So if they come back, there is a door.
Okay, and then the other question I just wanted to ask was about the bus lot. If we get a new school, will it stay the bus lot there?
That is a question I can't answer on that one. I don't know if they plan on putting this, if they were at a new school or somewhere else. I don't know.
All right, that was it. Thank you.
What year do you have that in?
Year 3.
Okay. So you made a reference to steep for the salt shed. Could you just update us a little more
Sure.
specifically?
All right, so when I took office, my predecessor had asked for some remaining money from a steep project to be utilized for this then shovel-ready project. I spent almost 2 years picking up the request that Christina left behind and continuing to make the request. So in 2019, we got authorization finally to use the money and move forward. It's about 349,000 and some change. And so then we moved around DOT, waiting to get a contract, and then COVID hit. And nobody's in work and no one has the files and no one knows what's happening. And we picked up the conversation once again and we go in circles. We have the authorization to use the 349,000 and change. We are working with DOT for them to get their bleep together to get us a contract so that we can move forward. But now there's no way that money, even with a smaller salt shed that Troy is thinking, could spread as far as it would in 2019 when they had said yes. We thought we could stretch that money so we might not need any extra and can do a project. So we have funds available. At some point, the state is gonna claw it back and we won't be able to continue to use it, which is frustrating to me, but we're at their mercy to some extent. And I would say at this point, we're no longer fully prepared to move forward and just go. We were ready then, but
Can you move forward with just the planning part of it?
yes,
So,
yeah. And Troy's saying he thinks we could get away with a smaller
right.
The
shed than we
site,
originally
is it,
planned.
is it where it currently is, or is this the other site that's,
It's around the garage. The biggest problem.
It's where it is behind the garage, but the same lot.
but it's elevated, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I hate to be that person, but I remember when I toured it before, I had questions. Had there been any sort of environmental impact conducted about, I mean, what is the possibility? Because there's a creek down there at the bottom, right?
Right.
What's the possibility of salt runoff from that shed running down into the creek? Versus, I know where it is right now, it's not elevated and there isn't any sort of water area right there. I mean, has there been that sort of thing considered with the new site?
Well, actually, the salt shed where it is now, it's right down that hill is right where the river.
creek.
is.
So it's the
Closer.
same, okay, so
It's the
we're
same.
still in the same, so has there been?
Well, there's
Uh-huh.
newer technology being put in with the salt shed. There would be storage containment areas where any runoff or anything like that would go into these tanks and then we would have to.
And that would be included in the smaller version that
It
you were
would still be,
thinking about?
yes, it's
Yeah, no
still,
matter what.
deep has to be, puts there, still, yeah, we can't cheat on different things. It has to be done the right way.
So stuff that's not currently in place would have to be in place with a new build?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And there's also some drainage in the area where this new salt shed would be, that already exists, that drains off of the old landfill that you probably don't remember when it was, you weren't here.
No, I
but-
wasn't here,
But the
yeah.
hill behind the transfer station, that big
Yeah,
hill, that's just a pile of garbage with dirt on top of it.
fabulous.
So-
Like the building up there.
So-
Don't
So-
apologize for being that person, because one of the things that's changed in our town is doing it because DOT has recommended more salt use, but Deep doesn't really, they're not in alignment with that.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I know
it's,
lots of
and,
low salt
and,
usage and
you know,
stuff.
nationwide, but we've been in better shape than a lot of states. We have lower salt content in our fresh waterways than other states do, but it's a crucial problem nationwide.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
As you know, farmer.
Yeah, well, you know, water is important. Okay, yeah, that was all I had. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, is the payloader we have now, the 2002? Is that, okay? And,
Oh, and what's the condition of that one? Just to jump on
It's
the,
in, I mean, we take care of it, we maintain it. It's just usually a 20-year life cycle for what it is. That's, to have the pins and bushings and stuff have gotten looser and do normal wear and tear on that machine. So 20 years to be replaced.
thank you.
so I guess you have to come back to talk about Liska and Village Hill.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I think it's important for us to note, and maybe when we get to the planning part, some of these were in year 2 last year, so they should be in year 1. And Troy's moved them off a little bit, so we'll see that kind of stack up, so. Hold off, and Carrie, to your question about I think it was yours, the new school, whoever asked that, there's land there, but I don't know, the SBC kind of touched on it, but not completely, whether or not the buses could be, was it Karen? Whether or not the buses could be on if a new build were done.
Over on the glass.
Yeah,
factory.
I think that there's 65 acres, right? So it's not all usable. There's some wetlands, that some of it could be used there if they went that way. I don't know that it's factored into the project. It would be paved, it would be clearing and paving to have it there, but I suppose it's an option. So maybe even if it wasn't now, maybe if we're gonna pave, is it better to pave it and move it somewhere else? I don't know. That's something to think about.
What year is the paving in?
Right now, it's in year 3,
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
so.
By that time, will we have we should have an idea of what's going on with SBC by then.
Yeah.
There's a planned referendum coming very
So
soon.
this is something we can talk about
I'll,
again, if it's all the way out.
I'll ask that question at SBC if there's some discussion. Again, we had some brief discussion about it before, and I'm just not 100% where we landed.
Okay.
But I don't, it's not in any of the concept plans, so.
I just don't always know
Yeah.
where things are being talked about.
The buses still need to get fuel. Right now, the fuel is still on Hancock Road at Public Works Department. So
Yeah.
like every other day or so, they have to fuel those buses up. So at one point in time, the buses are gonna be on that end of
Right.
town anyway, so.
Okay.
Melissa
Okay.
has her hand up.
Oh, Melissa. Do you have anything
Oh,
to-
yeah, I just was gonna comment. That's a good point, Stu. I forgot about the gas tanks, or diesel fuel tanks. But, I know there's a lot of the bus drivers have, they hate that, where the bus lot is located. Right there, because of the way the turn is and everything and all those windy roads, so. It would be nice if everything could be together in one central location, but. Okay,
But
that was it. Thank you.
the bus is parking over there, you still would have to drive to fill them, right?
Right, but it's not. I mean, it's doable. Our fire trucks go from their firehouse to there to fuel up too, so. The only thing that's right at the fuel station publicly.
Yep. All right, any other questions for Public Works about any of these projects? No? All right. Thanks, Troy.
thank you.
I think we can move on then.
All right,
So,
so that's me, yeah. All right, so the selectmen have 3 projects. The first is something I asked for in funding last year, and I actually increased the cost to 35,000, and that is for, sorry, I have to get used to these new forms, which I don't love. For a facility study. So as we get closer to a project, a potential school building project, that if either of the proposed projects are accepted, it leaves us with a building at least that won't be used. So we know that Center School is not in either proposed project. And so that begs the question, what would we do with that space? We certainly have heard that that's a concern amongst town. This space is less than adequate. What do we do with this space? How much repair do we put into this space? Our fire department both have needs. We have the old town hall library. I would say we need a whole town facility study. You can go, Troy, sorry. A whole town facility study to help us determine those needs and whether or not we're looking at 1 or 2 school buildings as part of that study. So in year 1, we're asking for 35,000. Last year we'd asked for 20. I've increased that to account for potential increases
okay.
with rising inflation.
The form says 30.
Does it say 30?
Yeah, it does.
Sorry, I flipped ahead.
The other 2 are 35 each.
Okay,
Wait, I have 35.
No.
For the facility study, it's a.
yeah, that's because I looked at the first page, it said 35, so that's for 30 instead of 20.
Listen.
So the sheet said, our form says 20, so,
And the colorful chart says 20 because that's the number that was there last year.
So this
and
is
I-
for the facility study.
for the facility study. So it was in year 2 last year, so I'm asking it to be moved up to year 1 in the plan as that's how the plan would go. But I did increase the cost because I think a more realistic cost assessment.
So 30 or
If needed.
35,
So 30,000.
30,000.
Yeah,
of what's on the paper.
correct. Sorry, I thought the papers were in order of how they are on the sheet. So the next item is.
Wait, can I ask a question about this?
Sure.
So if we moved it up to year one,
Mhm.
that would mean it would take place this year?
July, no, year one begins July 1. Our
Okay.
fiscal year, we're planning for July 1 through June 30.
So this needs to be conducted regardless of how the school is voted. Is that accurate? So what I'm saying is, let's say the town votes it down. Nope, we don't want anything, just throw our hands up. Bleh. Would you still need this facilities study?
I think it would be beneficial.
Okay,
Well, if they're gonna keep like center school, wouldn't you have to do a facility study anyway for updates on the school if they decide to keep it?
I think it would be beneficial to have a facility study done on all town facilities regardless of the project. We'll be looking at different outcomes. But yes,
and so this would be for the facility study would look at this building, center, would it look at hall?
if that's something that's not being used yet.
Okay, okay.
And what
So
else?
depending on the project, I would say we look at all of them. We look at our, the needs of the town. So that's what we'll be assessing in, as far as
Library?
facilities, the needs of the town. Yes. And
Senior
probably a
center.
much and it's much smaller scope than the others, but if we're looking at all of our facilities, we need to have them all encompassed. So they'd be part of the study. We just wouldn't necessarily be looking at what to do with them. We have a new library, we have a new senior center. We'll be looking at how to best utilize our facilities. You know, maybe that study would tell us we could utilize some of the space in the library for something else in town. And that's what will help us to define a course.
Is this a functional study on how the buildings are used or a maintenance study to determine what work needs to be caught up with?
Well, originally not used for the latter, but it depends on what the school building committee outcome is, I would say. Right? So we'll be looking at different use of facilities if we do nothing with our schools.
Jen has.
The direction it was made was based on assuming we have a positive project.
Well, I mean, even ignoring the school aspect of things, but in terms of buildings that are included, would that be the library, the fire stations and the senior center as well? In terms of municipal use or ultimately what municipality pays for?
Yes.
And then again, would it be a maintenance study as well in terms of, you know, like, let's say this building here, part of it is the use, obviously, but part of it is what section's gonna fall down first and
Yes.
what capital expenditures need to be placed on.
That
each
is
building.
that is my hope. How wide that is depends on whether or not we're maintaining our two schools. So, yes, all of the facilities in use in town.
Is 30,000 enough for that? And something more. Oh, sorry,
Jen is next.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's hard to be virtual in this environment, but I had a question about that too, because on the facility request, it says 30,000 and then on the back it says 100,000.
Yeah.
For the amount for the selected fiscal year.
Yeah.
And
the
ask that
box.
too.
Then that may be an error.
So does this
Okay.
harken back to kind of the conversation we had when we were on our fire station tour? Like I think this is super, super important. We talk about all these big projects and they're kind of just disconnected, disjointed perhaps. And if we had a facility study that had some kind of recommendation from an outside person that said, these are our recommendations, these are our suggestions for how you could run your buildings more efficiently. I feel like that would go a super long way in helping us with budgeting and with capital improvements. I really feel strongly that this is super, super important. And like should go before any other stuff.
Ditto.
I didn't,
I mean, we need a planning tool and Jen, I think we need a planning tool that we're actually going to do something with. We
Yes.
have shelves of studies.
Yes,
that
That's-
never- When it says
that's-
thank you, we don't agree.
That's
But it-
ridiculous. Yes.
Yeah.
It seems to me though that the real focus of this should be more about the school's impact than, I mean, the sort of town hall schools impact. I mean, if you broaden it, is it gonna like be a lot more than 30
It
grand?
could be. Well, I'll tell you what precipitated the request
Mhm.
was the fact that we anticipate a school project. Right, so we're
Right,
anticipating a school project was, we're going to be left with at least one building.
Mhm.
What is our need for services in within the town? And how do we best utilize those facilities? During our tour, it became clear that we need a broad scope to help us identify the needs of all of these things. And go from there. Now, if the referendum is no, we're not moving forward with anything,
Yeah.
then we're looking at different work. And is 30,000 enough? It may not be, but we need to start moving in a direction where we actually look at these things. So,
Jen, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just where I was sitting. I couldn't see this.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I get it.
Turns out you said exactly my questions. So thank you.
Okay.
Melissa has her hand up next.
Sorry, I just wanted to piggyback on that, that would be in this year then? That study?
Starting in July.
Okay, that's good, because I think it needs, I agree with everything that Jen said. So that we can, figure out. Just like with the school facility study that happened, it seems like 10 years ago, but I think it was only 7.
How much was that school facility study?
I think it was 15,
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay,
And what
so
happened
30
to
might
that?
be a.
but we're utilizing it to bring forth a project.
Oh,
That one
was,
is, yeah,
that was the incentive of the SBC.
yes,
I just haven't been here 7 years.
yeah,
Sorry.
that came out in 2017.
Jen?
I just didn't want you to think that my hand was up from before. I have another question.
Yeah.
So do we have some kind of quote that we are assured that that will be enough money, or like, how would we go about doing that? Because this is really, really important. I want to make sure if we have a number that we can look at and figure out what their scope of work is going to be.
I don't have a number because we haven't defined a scope of work to this point. And again, a lot of that is precipitated off of where we land with the school building project, but I will work to get one as we
Would
begin
that be-
continue our discussion.
Would that be something? Okay, I'm gonna kill myself later for saying this, but is this something that a committee would be in charge of? Like, if there were recommendations from some kind of facility study, making sure that those are implemented, would that fall to the school building committee as part of their scope of work? I'm just curious.
Go back to the Board of Selectmen to start.
Okay. I volunteer for that committee. Write that down.
She volunteers as tribute.
Yeah, she'll be like, who you called? I don't know who you are. To move quickly, I'm gonna reach out to our friends in Mansfield and I'll see what they said. They just did this, so they had their school project and then embarked on the same concept. And I know Ryan and I have talked about how much it was, but I'll confer with him and get you that number. Okay, so
Any more
So do you want
questions?
to talk about your other
if you're
ones?
done with this one.
Well,
Okay.
I have
Yep.
one question. What type of consultant or company does this sort of work? Who would you call to go, hey, we need a facility study?
I don't have a name for you now.
Well, I don't need a
Yeah.
specific, and what type of, is it an?
Really
Engineer.
smart
Is it an
engineer.
engineer? Is it, 1-800, what do I do with my building? I mean,
Yeah, definitely the latter, engineer.
Although I might call that number.
Would an engineer? I mean, it would have to be more specialized than an engineer, right? I mean, an engineer can just look at the condition of a building, but an engineer might not be great at city planning.
Right, so those companies have planning services.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Did it get really hot in here? Is it just my imagination?
No, it is.
I did not do it this way. I purposely turned it off. All right, so if we're good, I'll move on to common room floors. That's the room you're sitting in. They need to be replaced. This was something that was also in the plan. And I believe I increased the cost as well. Public Works was, willing to do some of the work I think we need, if we're gonna stay in this building. And I have no reason to believe we're leaving, so I'll start with that for the general public. They need some significant work. You'll see some of the stickers on the floor that we got during COVID to help with the direction of the first vote we had in here in 2020. If you pull them off the floor, they pull the tiles with them.
Well, you're talking to someone who's stupid enough to have Ronnie
So-
Sander across her hand yesterday. I trip over some of these corners. I catch my toes
Yes.
on them.
You can
Well, I
just
think
look
you
at it,
should
needs to be
mark
done.
public health and safety.
So I would check all of the boxes.
Yeah.
So it needs to be done for sure. It was painted as part of an Eagle Scout project by one of our residents. Another scout worked on the inside of the kitchen painting, but we need to take care of the floors. This is where we vote. Now we hold most of our town meetings up here and not downstairs. So the work needs to be done.
Is there any asbestos on the floor?
No.
Good question.
That has been determined. The
Oh,
answer is
really?
no.
You tested it?
Yes.
You had to crack a tile to get?
There's a couple.
So someone very smart before me had already done a study, and then when we had some tiles come up downstairs, we did it again to be sure.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and out there.
and out there, there's
test.
one at the door, yeah, so.
That's good.
Yes.
It's clean.
Jen has her hand up.
It's good.
Jen has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Jen.
So just kind of like going back to the facility study, is that, I understand the floors need to be replaced. I've been in that room. I've spent some time there, so I understand that the floors are in horrid condition. But if we end up not continuing to use that building for what it is used for currently, based on my favorite topic, the facility study, can we do like a what do you call that? Contractor job. Like, it's just the most basic thing that you can have in there, but it's not something that you're gonna trip over. Because I feel like if we're gonna do a study and they decide that the office building should be in another location, and that's $35,000 or $30,000, whatever it is that we've just flushed down the toilet.
So this is in year 2 of the plan, so I would
Yeah.
not be suggesting this year 1. And
Okay,
I would say, hopefully we'll have that study done so that
that makes
next
sense.
if we leave it in year 2 and it moves to year 1 and we decide to look in another direction, I would not recommend spending any money. It is not to the point where it's not safe. So if it were, you'd hear me saying, we need to replace it, and I'll use the cheapest material possible to get us a solid floor. Like we had to replace the floor downstairs in land use last year. It needed to be done. They were losing tiles every day. So if it becomes a safety issue, someone will be hearing from me to come up with money to do it, but I think it could be held off. So it was on the plan last year. And I suggested we push it off because we're gonna be looking at our facilities. I don't wanna, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't know how much lipstick we put on this pig if we're not gonna stay in it.
I appreciate that, and I should have paid closer attention to the years, so I
Yeah.
apologize.
Thanks. But if we don't have a plan to leave here currently, so it's on the plan, kind of like the school items. The last item is for building security, so it would be new system. I just want to make sure I follow exactly what we have here, and I thought we had information last year, so it's new access and security system with card readers for the main doors. And at DPW as well, similar to what you see in the schools. This is something else that I would say, if we don't stay here, we push off. There's a benefit for it to be done now. Many towns went to this during COVID as a means of easily locking the doors. Well, we saw people, but they came by appointment. And Stephanie's group is using this room for a meeting on Tuesday night. We give her a card. She doesn't return the card. We just shut off the access. and they're minimal. Now we have keys out all over the place. I don't know of a real solid accounting of keys for this building. And so just another level of security.
And then doing that over at the DPW.
Right, not on their overhead doors, on their main doors.
I've got nothing against that. UConn did it over the pandemic,
Yeah.
so I have to have a card to get in.
Did you have a quote from this?
I had a quote last year. I didn't go out and get a new quote because again, this is something I'll put in year 2 and then based on that study, move in a different direction. Let's say we were to readjust down the road into a building that has a system already in place, we wouldn't need one here. So, but I didn't go out to get a new quote.
Okay.
We can share with you the one that I provided last year, if you'd like. And I think I accounted for additional costs because nothing costs same.
Do we have time for you to just kind of say a few words about your,
We have 5 minutes. You want me to?
yeah,
All right.
your beautiful document?
Yeah, well, what I did was I took last year's CIP and I know when we were at the public hearing, that's when people actually pay attention to it, right? Like we do all this work and we look all this through, and then when we go to show it to people and they look at the first time, they can't understand anything about what's going on. And I don't know how to, I tried to figure out like, well, what's the problem? Why is it hard to understand? I don't think I really fixed it, but I did some, I put in some totals for each of the departments. I tried to color code it. I tried to put some notes in after the project titles. And then at least for here, I was just trying to focus on year 1 and year 2. With the thing down below, I tried to make that clearer of what these funding sources are. Because what I've learned, even just doing ARPA the last year, is people don't understand that people think CIP means just some big pot of money. They come to CIP for the money, and that's not what it is. What it is we have different funding sources and we have to match up those funding sources with the needs. And the funding sources are, I tried to put like what they are and stuff so that when we get into it and then when we have to explain it to other people, it's a little clearer. I don't know, I'm open to suggestions of what we need to do to make it
I
make sense.
appreciate it because last year being my first year on CIP, I kept asking, what's 910?
Yeah,
What's this? What's that?
yeah.
So I appreciate this bottom part.
Yeah, and actually what I didn't realize until I went and looked at it when I was trying to figure out what the lines were, like they're literally lines in the operating budget. So in line 311 was combined with line 910, and it was actually labeled 900. And it was just like bonds and leases, but it's 311 is specifically leases for public works. And line 10 is specifically bond payments, which the only one we have right now is the library bond payment. But if we have another bond payment for a school or for a road project, it would go in there too. But those lines, that's not a pot of money that we have. Those are actually funds that need to get collected through taxation. And then the other ones, like line 504, which we've been calling it 04 all this time, capital reserve, that's also a line item in the budget. So every year we put some amount of money into 504 in the reserve. And that's the black line at the very bottom here. Well, not the one above it, the gray one, which last year we put 245,000 into. And we had said at the time that the plan is to increase that by 10% each year. And so when we build out the 5 years, we'll do that, put that number in. And then also the amount that would come out of like local spending in general, we're trying to hit a 10% increase over each year. And we're not gonna be able to do that, I don't think, when we put in these bonding numbers. I think it's gonna blow it all out of the water, but that's what we can try to do when we start.
Well, just as an example too, it's really helpful for CIP, but it's helpful for other people too, because like the assessor was asking, you know, is there, where is the money that, you know, the
Mhm.
holding account? And it says right on here, if you look up at the blue coded line for the assessor's revaluation, you go over to the end of the first year that we're working on, year one, it says 04 there.
Yeah, it should say
Which is-
504.
No, it's 04, because we put money into 504 and then we
Take it
draw
out.
it out of the
Yes.
fund. So we
Right, right,
put
right.
cash into the fund and then off budget out of 04.
Yeah, I'm not questioning it,
Yeah.
you know, I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
it's
yeah.
04.
Yeah,
But I'm just like connecting the dots for people who are seeing these funds, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And then
And more is a new thing.
And then one thing I noticed just doing this because I had the old one. Well, Donna has tables that are in this Excel spreadsheet that relate to each of these funds. And then she shows like how much was in there, start of the year, and then if we do these projects, what it ends up being at the end. And that's what we have to balance and make sure none of them go below zero. So that's sort of the work that she does at the very end, making sure. And there are some groups that I was gonna ask you about, like Parks and Rec didn't submit anything, but they also got money for the pickleball court last year that they haven't done.
They said
anything.
they were holding up on pickleball until the other work got done.
Mhm. Okay.
The drainage
Until the
work.
The
drainage
drainage work,
project
which they
got
got money
done.
from ARPA for that, so
Yeah, and
I
I
guess-
think that was LoSiP. I think that was a LoSiP project.
I think so, yep. And then
So does that just carry over?
it's in a
Yeah.
reserve,
Okay.
yeah, it's earmarked, I guess you would
Yeah.
say. And the senior center didn't put anything in?
No.
Do you think that they just didn't? No, or they don't have any needs in the next 5 years?
Well, they did those ARPA projects.
Why, just,
Didn't
yeah,
they do like a generator and then like an oven and
yeah, the
Right.
stove, yeah,
stuff? Yeah.
but in 5 years, they don't need painting or, I don't know. I'm just worried that they haven't thought about it. And then the Old Town Hall is another one, like, does that need anything?
We don't anticipate anything in the next 5 years, but it's a really old building, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
and
septic
that,
system is going in,
mhm.
hopefully, spring or summer.
And then you read some other maintenance, right? Like windows or painting or something?
I hope to. It was part of our request for the steep money,
Mhm.
but the reality is, you know, we have a budget there that came in 2020. And as the pandemic has changed, so is the cost, we haven't gone out to bid on the septic portion yet. So I hope there's still funds left for the
Okay.
painting portion.
Cause I felt like that was passed at town or approved.
It was, so
the
that we
appropriation
put in
was
a
passed.
grant for X amount of dollars. We went for the max, which was 128.9. And it included those two things, because based on cost, at that time, we could get the whole project done. So I'm waiting for our engineers portion left to see the new estimated costs as we go out to bid. So I'm hoping that the bids will come in so that we still have funding, because they're almost two different things, right? To do the septic and then the painting
Oh, yeah,
and the glazing of the windows.
pretty and poo-poo.
Yes, but I'm afraid that the poo-poo is gonna take a lot more money than we had anticipated in 2020. So, yes,
Were you guys saying something kind of before the meeting about the school placeholder bond money and stuff?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, is
just,
are those numbers kind of,
some clear dollars should be coming from SBC on where that will fit. Like I can
Okay.
tell you in year two, that's way more than we actually need to spend, because
Okay.
the bond won't happen in next year if either project goes.
yeah.
thanks for doing this.
Oh, well, if anybody like looks at this and thinks like, oh, if you just, add this column or do whatever, just let me know because I don't know, I want people to understand it.
Are you planning to put the remainder of the project, are these all the projects?
It's all the projects, but I'm gonna
You
add
just
this,
don't see the years.
right, I'm gonna add the other years in
Okay.
too. But I just, for today, I wanted it
No, I
to,
think this is great.
yeah,
I'll go over, I think I sent you a couple of notes,
yeah,
but,
yeah, and I did, it was moving those things
Yeah,
out to year two.
yeah,
so-
and then I just didn't get back to the rest.
Okay,
Oh.
I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I have a 3 o'clock
Yeah,
meeting.
no.
Normally I can stay a few more
Yes, and
minutes,
we're
but I
past
left my
two.
phone at home, so I gotta go home. and
All
then
right.
go-
When is your next meeting?
Our next meeting is Wednesday, is that right?
Yeah,
Wednesday at
Wednesday at
5.
5.
Wednesday at 5.
So is this our schedule?
This is our schedule.
Okay.
The Wednesdays were, we said at 5 and the Fridays were at 12:30.
Okay,
Before
I'm going
you-
to try and make it
I'm sorry,
in
Wednesday to when?
person Wednesday because it is the first day of school. I'm sort of hoping that my class does not go 3.5 hours like it does on a normal day. So I'm hoping to be here. Otherwise, I may be on my phone driving home,
Okay.
but
And Fridays are 5:30?
No,
12:30.
Fridays at 12:30. 12:30 to 2. And
Wednesday.
Wednesday, hopefully 5 to 6:30, because that goes up to another meeting.
So
But
5
I-
to 6:30 and then 12:30 to 2.
Yeah,
And then I just want to clarify for that one Tuesday meeting in there on February 14th, would that be at 5 PM? Because we don't have a time
I
on
think
any of
there's no
these.
other meeting there, and so that's as needed, and our fearless leader will not be with us that day, so
Yeah.
let's plan as we go.
Okay,
So
and it says, yeah. as
if we
needed.
can, I think the good thing is we really keep ourselves on track when we've given ourselves a time limit and
Yeah.
we work to be, we
Yeah.
don't kind of go off target. And so we should hear all of the items within the first, these 3 meetings, and we'll hear the library and then miscellaneous, and so miscellaneous, we'll throw in those 2 for trying to come back and talk to us, and then we have time to really plan. And we'll
Yeah, I
we'll
would-
get you solid.
I would urge us
SBC
to
numbers.
get our act together before then too, because.
And that we don't have a snow day.
That is
That-
correct.
Yeah, right,
it
right.
has.
That's correct. If we
We
think,
don't want to
if
screw up Valentine's.
if we think it's happening, we can always look at just a solely virtual meeting too. So, or I can always be here, so it still be in person if
That's a
somebody
good
still
point.
comes.
All right, see you
Can
Wednesday.
I
All right.
move to adjourn?
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Erica.
One question.
Yeah, kids champing at the bit over there.
Other than Liska and Village Hill, were there any projects that were on the big spreadsheet last year that weren't re-requested this year?
Nope. Nope. All right, so Erica motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
I think she was first. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys, thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us.